Hi, everybody. If you would like to sit closer to the front of this panel, that would probably be cozier for you. I know this is kind of a spacious room, but I think we can still make it feel cozy if you were to get cozy with us. So, I'll talk a little bit as you're moving, so you don't just have me watching you supervising this transition. My name's Darcy. I'm one of the coordinators of Theories in Action. And I'm just going to tell you a couple quick things about all the juicy, fun, exciting things going on this weekend. So this is the second set of presentations going on this weekend. We have 14 different group presentations as well as a poster session taking place, so there are over 65 people presenting this weekend. It's really exciting, and I'm so excited for this panel, including some great friends of mine right now. I'm going to tell you two quick things about what's going on with our conference this year. As you may have noticed when you came in, we just have this single sheet for our program, and that's because our full conference schedule is available online. So you can get it either through our website, which is browntia.wordpress.com, or you can download our app, which is so shiny and wonderful, and you can access it on your Apple or Android smartphone by going to bit.ly/TIA14app, and then you can have the full conference schedule, all the presenters' bios, anything you might possibly want to know about TIA at the touch of a button. Or also most of it is on here anyway, so, but we're greatly reducing our environmental impact, so that's great. The second thing that directly relates to this presentation you're about to see is our Synergy Award. So as I said, there are 14 different groups presenting this weekend, and at the conclusion of the conference at our closing celebration on Sunday at 6 in Lyon, which you all are invited to, we will be announcing a Synergy Award winner. So the Synergy Award goes to a presentation that did a really amazing job synthesizing their projects into a presentation that's better than the sum of its parts. So if you look on this schedule or on the app or online, you'll see Synergy keywords below every panel. And so the keyword for this presentation is narratives. And so if you think that this group of wonderful presenters does a great job synthesizing their work into a project better than the sum of its parts, a presentation better than the sum of its parts, you can text their keyword to 678 SYNTIA5, Synergy Award, Theories in Action, 5th anniversary. I'm excited about the phone number, you don't have to be. And you can vote for as many presentations as you go to, because I bet a lot of presentations will do a great job, but only one vote per presentation. And again, we would invite you all to join us at our closing celebration for all seniors Sunday at 6 upstairs in Lund Gallery. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to our amazing group of presenters right now, facilitated by Shane Lloyd, Assistant Director of the Third World Center, and I hope that you have a great time this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you, Darcy. Well, welcome everyone, parents, family, friends. We're so glad to have you here. Oh, yes. Oh. Fine. Oh. Sad times. Oh, great, it works. Well, praise. So my name is Shane Lloyd, as Darcy mentioned, and I'm the Assistant Director of the Third World Center at Brown University. I'm very excited to have you all here, and so glad that you all decided to join us this afternoon for this very special workshop. I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself and then sort of invite the panelists to tell you a little about themselves and what we'll do in our time together. So I've facilitated a lot of Theories in Action panels, and they have all been incredibly exciting and dynamic, and I think that I'm most excited to do this particular panel because it pretty much relates to my work. The title of the presentation is Narratives of Identity, and a lot of the work that I do within the Third World Center is providing an opportunity and space for students to engage in conversations where they can more deeply explore their racial identity. And although the center of our work is around race, it fits within the larger conversations around identity that students are having while they're here at Brown. So that conversation might include race, it might include religious identity, it might include gender, sexuality, class, and I find that this sort of great panel here is going to do a wonderful job of weaving all of these narratives together to provide a full holistic picture of what is the sort of student experience like and sort of what is the humanity deep within the narratives that we all share within from the different lenses of our identities. So I'll have you all take it away.
Thank you, Shane. We are so excited to be doing this panel. I'm Alice. I am a senior studying narratology, which is very literally the study of narratives, so I'm very, very excited to be doing a presentation devoted to that. My thesis was about Anna Karenina, but we're not going to be talking about that too much, so don't worry, there's not much Tolstoy.
Hi everyone, my name is Kimberly. I'm also a senior. I'm an English concentrator at Brown, and my senior year honors thesis was the literary subject representations of grace in New England Puritan poetry. So like Alice said, don't worry, we won't be going too much into the specifics of our project, so Puritan theology is not something I will be having to teach you over the next hour and a half, but keep that in the back of your head as we're thinking about these various layers of identity that we discussed today.
Hi everyone, I'm Melanie. I'm a senior at Brown, and I'm concentrating in history with a focus on modern American religious, social, and political history. So I'm really interested in the idea of what makes people feel like they matter in society, and how different identities, different perspectives, whether they be sexual orientation, religion, gender identity, class identity, etc., how all these different components make people feel like they're part of something larger than themselves, and how institutions relate to that. And I originally applied to present at this conference based off my work dealing with communities of faith at Brown, but we're not going to be talking about that, but just think about that in the back of your head, just thinking about the different identities and perspectives that you bring. And also another thing, a plug that Darcy and Jessica talked to me about was about there's a Twitter hashtag for the conference, and if you go online you can tweet about it, and as some of you may know, I really like Twitter, and thinking about also how social media, connection between social media and identity, so just wanted to say that too.
What's the hashtag? Brown TIA 14.
So Great, okay, hi. So our first activity will basically be an introduction. We're a small group, so that means we can be decently personal if that's something you're comfortable with. Obviously, if you would rather not share, that's also something we by no means are forcing you to do. So our first activity will be to introduce your name and then also provide a story of where that name came from. So Melanie, if you'd like to go first.
Yeah, of course. So, I'm Melanie, like I just said, and my name actually is from, oh my goodness, my parents are here, maybe they can give more of a background about where my name came from. But I'm named after my great-grandmother, Menny, and so am Melanie, Menny, and then also Nicole, which was named after another female relative from my father's side of the family. But then also my Hebrew name is Malka Nechama, and Malka means queen in Hebrew, and that Hebrew name is directly derived also from older people and from relatives.
So hopefully you know I'm Kimberly by now. We've gone through the introductions. So the story I have is that my parents were deciding between Kimberly and Catherine, and it actually came down to my dad just saying that he liked Kimberly better, apparently. Dad is also here to verify that story or deny it. So that's where Kimberly is coming from.
So my parents are not here to confirm or deny this story, but it is true. My name just came from my great-grandmother. My mother liked the name Alice. She thought it was a classic name, which apparently it is. And so that's why she chose it.
So my name is Shane. Let's see. Well, I'll give you my whole name then. Shane Lindsay Lloyd, and not Lindsay like Lohan. Lindsay with a Z, actually, and it's from the Dominican Republic. But my first name, so I have a twin sister named Shauna, and my mother's goal was to name us Sean and Shauna. But then my father ruined everything because he had a son named Sean already from a previous marriage. So she said, great, what to do when the name's already taken. So somehow she found Shane. The story, there wasn't much of a story. She just said, you know, what's closest to Sean? Shane. And it works out cute enough, Shane and Shauna. So she still had her twin, she still had the cuteness. Wasn't Sean, but it worked out. Sure. Pass it, invite the audience members to tell us the story of yours. Would you like to go first, or I can start over there?
If you'd like to pass, just say pass. Yeah.
My name is Reva. I guess my name was originally going to be Amrapali, but then my parents asked their American friends, and it was apparently too hard to pronounce, so they went with Reva instead, which is still pretty difficult for people to pronounce. But I think it means star.
My name is Catherine. I'm named after my grandmother, who was Sarah Catherine Helms, and my middle name is Anne, which is the name of my great-great-grandmother, and we have a portrait of her hanging in our living room, and whenever people come to our house, they ask, oh, Catherine, when did you get dressed up in all those old-timey clothes and sit for a portrait?
my name's Kayla, and my parents wanted to name me Rebecca, but it was already taken by a cousin in the family. So they looked through a baby book and they're like, yeah, that's fine. And then my mom's water broke and they're like, okay, I guess that's gonna be it. And my grandmother did not believe it was a real name. She got very angry that this was my name, and so until she saw some hair barrettes in like a pharmacy that had the name Kayla on it, did she really believe it was a real name. And so ever since, I've gotten things on my birthday that's like a necklace that says Kayla and like hair barrettes, just so she can keep my name straight and that it's real. So.
Hi, my name is Dean. Not really sure where my name came from. It's just more of an American name. So both my parents were Japanese and they had Japanese first names. So I think they just wanted to go in American. So, got Dean.
Hi, I'm Mary, and I'm named for the Catholic tradition of Mary, the Mother of Jesus.
I'm Kim. It's short for Kimberly. My parents never really approved my nickname, but that's it. And the way they decided on my name is my parents made a list of guy and girl names that they would approve to name their son or daughter. They traded lists and crossed off all the names they didn't like on each other's list, and the only one left was Kimberly. So if I was a guy, they would not have had a name for me.
My name is Jessica, after the daughter of Shylock, Merchant of Venice. And actually, as I just read on Wikipedia, the most popular name in the 1980s and 90s, so props to my parents for being really original.
My name is Shreya. The name comes from another Sanskrit name for the goddess Lakshmi in Hindu tradition.
My name is Stacy, which is my father's sister's name, but was my mom's best friend first. That's how they met.
Hi guys, my name is James, and my name comes from my maternal grandfather, who is James Williams Bartlett.
Hi, I'm Daniel, and my dad's name is Daniel.
Hi, I'm Shafali. Means orchid in Hindi. And I think my parents chose it for similar reasons to Reva, in that they told people they met, and it seemed relatively pronounceable, so they went for it.
Hi, my name's Chelsea. My name has kind of always confused me because my mom just picked it, and she was like the more aggressive out of my mom and my dad. But like out of me and my sisters, it's Ashley, Erica, Chelsea, Rebecca, Haley, Sarah, which all sound like Valley Girls, and that's so not what my family is. So still confused.
So my name's Audrey. My parents were trying to decide between Audrey and Aubrey. They're actually right here. And Aubrey could be a boy's name. And Audrey was for Audrey Hepburn, and then they let my sister pick. And luckily she chose Audrey because I haven't met an Aubrey that I like.
Hi, my name is Kaylee, and I was the firstborn, and my dad's name is Ken, and his middle name is Lee, so they took Ken Lee and made it into Kaylee, and thought they were being super cool and original, and now everyone has stolen my name.
My name is Rhonda, and I'm named after the actress Rhonda Fleming from back in the 50s or 40s or whenever that was.
My name is Siri, which is like the new iPhone thing, so that's fun. But my parents wanted to pick a name that was, because most of my family is Swedish, so they were kind of looking for names, and my grandmother came up with a list that the top runners were Kermit and Thor. So I'm kind of happy that they went with a different family friend's name, which was Siri.
My name is Ken. I'm Audrey's dad. My name came from one of my father's best friends. His name was Kenny Baker. He was in the Marine Corps with them, and was quite fond of him. So that's where my name came from. And as far as I understand, it's been around.
So I'm David, and sometimes go by Dave, except for my mom, who was always David. My middle name is Robert, and it's because I'm named for my great uncle, Baruch, and that's his Hebrew name was Baruch, and they like David, and that's how that came up with that one.
Hi, I'm Peggy, and I was named Peggy because it was my grandmother's favorite name, and I actually also have a cousin named Peggy. They like that name so much. And my middle name is Anne, and that was really a filler middle name. So.
My name is Jane. Jane was my grandfather's sister, so that's how I got my first name. My mom wanted to name me Emma Jane, but she thought there would be too many Emilys and Emmas, so they changed Jane to my first name. And my middle name is Louise, which is my mom's grandmother, and so my great-grandmother, and she lived through 2 world wars in Berlin. So it's a very special name.
My name's Darcy, and I'm named after a person who saved my mom's life, which is pretty cool. And I definitely got the more interesting name because my sister's name is Emily, so I feel pretty lucky I didn't get a common name.
My name is Stephanie. My mom has one story and my sisters have another. She says it's her best friend from Guatemala is Estefany and Estefania, but the more American that she tried to be was Stephanie, and then my sisters were like, no, we were watching Full House, and like, you know, the Stephanie, so it was either Stephanie Michelle or the other girl, I forgot her name, but, or DJ, but so whatever story works.
Knocked over the water bottle. It was unfortunately. Okay, so thanks for this activity, and now we're gonna do another activity where we're gonna say 3 dates, as specific or as broad as you'd like them to be, that have significance in your life, and if you feel comfortable to explain a little bit about those dates. So my first date is October 7th, 1995, which is when I became a big sister, when my younger sister was born, and then another important date in my life. Oh, can everyone hear me? Okay, excellent. And then another important date in my life was March 3rd, 2010, which is 2009. And March 3rd, 2009, when I was on this relay for track, and we were at a New England championship meet, and we did well, and it was really, really exciting for me, and it was a big confidence booster for me, and got me thinking about running in a very different kind of way. And then also, I believe the exact date is December 14th, 2009, which is when I found out that I got into Brown University. So that was a very important date for me as well. So those are 3 dates. I'm sure there are more. I'm sure my parents could help me come up with more too.
Great. So the first one for me is August 21st, 1992, which is my birthday. So that begins the whole existence of a narrative, I think. So that's what we're starting with. The second is May 1995. She just told me that. But 1995, we moved to Massachusetts. We were living in Ohio previously. Been in the same town since then, so I was a little kid, thankfully not so little anymore. And then August 22nd, 2010 was the date that I moved into Brown. I took my chemistry placement exam on my birthday. I thankfully passed that chemistry placement exam. It would have been a really bad birthday. And then I moved in and started a pre-orientation program the day following when I turned 18, became a legal adult, became a real person, moved into Brown.
My 3 dates are all very close together chronologically. The first is December 12th, 2008. The second is September 10th, 2010. And then the third is May 18th, 2011, and each of these dates correspond with when I consider various chapters in my life to have started. So we wanted to give you those examples. It will probably take you a couple minutes to think of dates that you want to use, so we'll let you have maybe like 2-3 minutes to do that.
I guess the first date would be January 13th, 1965, because that's my mom's birthday, and the second day would be November 20-something, 2008, that's when my first little niece was born, and the next day would be June 14th, 1992, that's when I was born, which is Flag Day, which no one knows except me.
I prefer to pass.
I guess the first one is my birthday, which would be October 21st, 1992. The next, I only have 2 dates because I didn't have that long to think. And then the next one would be January 2012, which is when I started at Brown.
Okay, so we have to give years too, right? Okay, so I guess the first one, my birthday, which is 2/1/60, and that's particularly significant for me because it's actually my father's birthday also. And then 18 years later, my niece was born too, so we had 3 generations on the same day. So it was a really important day for our family. And if you missed a birthday, make sure you don't miss that one because then you really mess up. And then another one would be, of course, March 4th, 1989, when we got married. I have to say that, right? And then a third one, of course, when Melanie was born, May 3rd, 1992. So her birthday's coming up in a few days.
You took a couple of my dates. So I'll actually use July of 1987, and I think it was July 5th or July 6th, which is when Peggy and I met in Israel. So that was clearly the precursor, very important part of my life. The second day I would say would be May 3rd of 92, because yes, Mel, you were born and you changed our life significantly and wonderfully. And I think the third day that I'm going to use is today, because we are here and it's exciting to be here and learning and sharing this with everyone.
I want to start back there.
Thanks, Kayla. I'm going to say October 6, 2008 is when my little brother was born. January 23rd, 2013 was the first newspaper we put out when I worked on the Herald. And June 25th, 2013, when I was in Texas and discovered what I wanted to do professionally.
I guess June 22nd, 1992. I don't remember that date very well, but evidently that's when I was created. So, you know, that's when I came into this world. And I agree that that's probably where my narrative would start. And then March 6, 1997, like Melanie said, it's when my little sister was born. And being a big sister is like very important to me and continues to be an important role for me. And then March 5th, 2014 is when I found out that my mom was cancer-free, so that was exciting.
So I guess my birthday is November 10th, 1991, so that was a pretty good day for me. And my second date is, I don't know if I'm allowed to do recurring dates, but it would be like every 4th of July is a big deal for my family. And when we kind of have big family reunions, even though my extended family is really small, and so every 4th of July is a big deal. And then I guess my third date would be December 29th of 2013, so just last December, which was also a big day for me and for my parents, because my parents got remarried after having been married on October 25th, 1981, and then getting divorced earlier when I was little, and then they got remarried this past December. So that was a neat thing.
I'm gonna pass.
The first date for me is November 12th, 2003, when my younger brother was born, and I stopped being the focus of attention in the family. And the next date is sometime mid-August of 2007, which was what I like to think of my first experience in the real world, because I just began high school at my public high school, and the girl sitting behind me was pregnant with her second child, and she was 16 years old. So. Anyway, the last date is sometime in July 2011, when I stood at the foot of a temple in India, where you could see, so in Hindu myth, there's a story that goes, one Hindu god built a bridge across the south of India to Sri Lanka using stone. And you kind of believe these things, but I actually saw the stones in the water at the very foot of that temple, and it was kind of the start of my true belief and personal belief in Hinduism.
April 29th, 1961 was the day my mother was born. April 4th, 1994 was the day my brother was born. And then December 24th, 2011 was the day my grandmother passed away.
I'm going to do my birthday as well, start of my journey. November 12th, 1999 was the year or day my mom had a really bad accident, but she survived against all odds, so I'm really thankful for that day. And the last day is probably when I got accepted to Brown, which is April 1st, 2010, maybe? I don't know, maybe. Okay.
My first day would be October 27th, which is our wedding, kind of the start of our family. And the other 2 days would be the birthday of our daughters. So May 28th and August 21st.
My first day is March 9th, 1989, when I met my future husband. And then August 21st, 1992, and May 28th, 1995, for the birth of my 2 daughters.
I'm not good with years, so my brother's birthday is the day I learned to ride a bike and the day I got into Brown.
My dates are the summer of 2012, 8 weeks ago, and probably the day I graduated from high school. I was damn happy.
The first one I go with, actually September 11th, 2001 was I think that's an obvious one for me. September 10th, I think it was 2010, was my bat mitzvah, so that the day I became a Jewish adult. And June 16th, I think 2012 or 2013, which is when my sister got married. And so it just signaled like the next generation of our family starting.
Let's see, so I'm not exactly sure what day, but I do know it was May of 1981 that my parents came to the United States from the Caribbean, so then I feel like that's when the sort of American narrative of our family story began. Let's see, May 16th is my birthday, so that was an important date because, you know, I came, my twin sister soon followed, don't know why, twins, and then, oh, sure, oh, one right in front of me, oh. There we go. Great. So I'll repeat the date. So May, insert some forgotten date. In 1981 is when my parents came to the United States, so that's when the sort of American narrative of our family story began. Previously, my parents had lived in the Caribbean all their lives. And then May 16th, 1985, when my twin sister and I came to the world. I think this is a little bit of an aside, but initially my mother thought she was only having one child. And then she thought she had cancer. And then they said, that's just a second child. And she said, wow, that was a relief. And then the third date, what's the big date? I should have written this down. Let's see, so I'll pick August 17th, 2012 and 13th. So August 17th, 2012 was when my father passed away, and August 17th of 2013 is when my little sister and I came together and we hosted a celebration in his honor to fundraise for families with members with rare cancers. So that way we kind of reclaimed a day that was otherwise very, very sad, so that we could tell a new narrative of giving families hope.
Thank you, everyone, for sharing. It's a very personal thing to share dates that are so close to you, so we really appreciate everyone participating in that. Since we started thinking about our own identities and how we constructed personal narratives, we now want to think about how do we construct narratives of identity in general. So at this point, we're going to ask people to split up into groups ranging from 2 to 4 to 5. Really, it's not super strict, but we are going to create our own narratives of identity. I'll let you go. Sure.
So the prompt we have is is a story for life of a, insert word here, Brown student. So however you'd like to construct that, starting your day at 7 a.m., 8 a.m., 11 a.m., 1 p.m., whenever you'd like to do that, and then ending that day when you feel the day concludes. So once again, as Alice said, if you could get together in groups of 2 to 4 to 5, people somewhere in there. We do have paper for you to take notes. We do encourage, this is mostly a conversation, so if you want to only have one person in your group jot down words that will be able to jot your memory later when we hopefully share these. We do have writing utensils, we do have paper, so feel free to come up and grab those. We'll also be walking around too. Any questions at all?
Also, there are lots of wonderful people in the room, and there are people who I at least personally know and who I at least personally don't know. So definitely feel free to make new friends, keep the old, however you want to do. But this is going to be a safe space. If you're talking about yourself, if anything regarding yourself comes up, also I statements, speaking from personal experience, all of that, all of those important things as well.
And also, just to clarify what we mean when we say I am a blank Brown student, what goes in that blank is whatever sort of identity identifier you want to use, whether that has to do with age, gender, race, sexuality, whatever you think would be interesting or appropriate, or whatever you care about. It doesn't have to be how you identify personally.
So we think everyone is starting to wrap up, so we're going to...
Hi everyone, so we're gonna wrap up and regroup. Tour guide boys.
I think this one's
Okay, excellent.
So one of you can present, all of you can present. How you feel comfortable.
Hi everyone. So we did the narrative. Is this work? Oh yeah. We did the narrative of a senior Brown student, and we just have a list of things that were thrown out in our discussion of what goes on in the mind of a senior. And so the first one is the existential crises that are constant, like the what am I doing with my life? The also obsession with free food, nostalgia, times at the GCB. I can just continue.
The elements of thesis stress that kind of embed themselves in our lives, when to meets, which is a larger embodiment of the idea of scheduling and trying to make time for everyone in our lives that we want to make sure we have enough time with while we're about to graduate. And then commemorating the moment, kind of making sure we get time for all of our final goodbyes, whether they're the actual final goodbyes or not, but really making those meaningful.
Okay. We started talking about bucket lists and the idea of go big or go home. And then I guess that's what I said. It's class a thing that happens. And then if I feel like last, you get to come back. And then also thinking about legacy and whether you'll have a legacy on this campus.
Also, just a question.
Like, do I have a job?
All right, so we are a Happy Brown student, and we just kind of gave a schedule for the day. So you're going to wake up, it's going to be Friday, and you're going to wake up around 8 a.m. The sun will be shining, but more likely it'll be pouring. So you're going to need to get some coffee, and then you will head over to the Ratty, and either Jose or Gail will swipe you in. And you will have eggs and tater tots with people, with friends. And after that, you will walk to class, and you will say hi to about 4 to 10 people. You might get one high five. And then your first class will be a creative GSP class that you will enjoy. After that, you'll go to the V-Dub, since it's Friday, for Chicken Finger Friday, with your BFFs. And you will then meet random people who say hi to you at the V-Dub. And you'll have a great conversation with the guy that serves the chicken fingers about vegetarianism. And in the afternoon, you will spend time on the main green, relaxing and playing frisbee.
It stopped raining by this point.
It stopped raining. The rain stops like right as the coffee's ready. And then you have a lecture by some inspiring human. You have dinner somewhere new and delish. And then you watch a movie with friends and cuddling. And then you go to the GCB, and then it's bedtime.
A graduating senior, but we did like a 9 a.m. to like bedtime schedule. So you wake up at 9 a.m. and you already slept through your class because it's spring semester and why not? Then you have lunch with a freshman friend that you lost track of but are trying to reconnect at last minute. And then you go sit in the sunshine and then take a long solitary walk. But then you start to panic about your future while you're alone. So then you have to get coffee with a close friend to calm you down or sometimes stress you out depending on if they have a job or not. And then you go to seminar and you roll your eyes at people who make annoying comments and try to participate that one time. And then you go home for dinner and have a glass of wine. Then your parents call and you have to avoid the conversation with your parents about what is your future, what are you doing? And then you watch TV and maybe nap, but then you get ready because you have to go out. But you end up at the GCB anyways. And then you stumble back home and go bed with your partner or Netflix.
We actually answered the narrative as the parent of a Brown student, and we realized we have no idea what they do during the day. So we just talked about how proud we are of our kids.
We also talked about graduating Brown student, and we didn't really come up with like what we did every day. We just kind of talked about what it feels to be a graduating student, and we came up with like we're feeling anxious about what like our future is, but also the sense of relief and like maturity after being here for so long.
Yeah, our list is a little bit a ramble of emotions, including excitement, change, limbo of identity, pseudo-adult, but pseudo-alumni, pseudo-college grad student, pseudo-X and Y, and also a time of celebration.
I think you got them all.
Yeah, so just a lot of emotions.
Okay, so we thought it would only be fair if we did one also. So we did, I guess we were original, and we did a day in the life of a graduating Brown student. So first you wake up before your alarm.
Which we are going to specify not sleeping in until 9 a.m., but closer to 7:30 or 8, just to specify that. You get coffee and read morning mail.
You answer emails, maybe do some work for an hour or so, go to class, walk home, eat lunch.
Then you go to one of your friends' events or presentations or thesis defenses, and then you leave early to go to another friend's event or thesis presentation or thesis defense.
Through that entire time, you wish you were napping, but instead, you go for a run, you drink more caffeine, and then you distract yourself with dinner.
After dinner, you pretend to do work, but really just go on email, Facebook, whatever your pleasure, and then you contemplate going to the GCB, but end up deciding to go to bed because you're old and 22. And that's all you want.
Yeah, so then you, after contemplating going to the GCB, you cancel all of your plans in favor of watching Netflix and drinking tea or another warm beverage. And then after that, you go to sleep. And then the whole day starts again.
So thank you all so much for sharing. Obviously, there seems to be an extremely common theme in the fact that many of us are graduating next year, and that seems to be every single day. Hello. Hi. Great. Okay. So we now, since we fooled all of you and said we were going to make a presentation panel about the work we've been doing for the past year, we'll actually discuss the work we've been doing for the past year in the larger context of narratives and identity and how those two weave together and how they weave across a bunch of different fields, a bunch of different modifiers, adjectives, nouns, everything that you can possibly think of. So I'm going to pass it off and refuse to go first.
Okay, Nope, no Puritan poetry.
So I will not go into any specific literary theory or anything because you came to Narratives on Identity, not Tolstoy's narrative. But my thesis was looking at adaptation and the differences between narratives as presented in literature and narratives as presented in film. So the next time you have a conversation about why was the movie so much worse than the book, that's more or less what I was looking at. And I came to the conclusion personally that it's not that narratives in film are different or are better or worse than narratives in books. They're just different. And that is contrary to a lot of, I mean, certainly my framework for assessing the value of a story. So that really required a shift in the way I thought about various forms of art.
So to connect a little more directly with the project we just did, two things that some of you asked about were, first off, is this my narrative or is this a narrative of someone else? And that gets into questions for me of subjectivity. So is this a narrative that I'm actively creating myself, or is this a narrative that I'm looking at someone else's story, someone else's life, someone else's presentation of themselves and writing, thinking about that? So in terms of the Puritans and in that context, it gets a little complicated because God is the one looking at everything and you have no idea what God is thinking because you're not supposed to know what God is thinking because you're not God. So with the Puritans writing these poems, they're hoping and guessing and often denigrating themselves and writing these poems in a progression of, here's where I was before, I had this moment of grace where God did something funky and I did something funky and oh my goodness, I didn't know that happened. And then afterwards trying to figure out what to make of that. So along the way, there's questions of body and soul, and how do I understand myself when everything I'm talking about is in question? And also, how do I present myself when I'm not supposed to be actively seeking anything? I'm supposed to be passively receiving God's promise, and hopefully that means heaven, but goodness knows that could also mean hell, and I will not know while I'm writing this poem, and I don't want you to think horribly of me, but it's going to be published, and putting together that narrative. So when I say the literary subject with representations of grace, they were able to enact this active narrative only in literature. And my understanding and my conclusion was that the body that was previously seen as so sinful is actually something that they had to accept and compromise and bring together with the idea of the soul. So even though we have these parts of ourselves that we could be ashamed of, that we could be embarrassed about, that we don't necessarily want to be part of our identity, accepting those and bringing them into the larger picture was a process that they were working through in writing their poetry.
Okay, so I did not write a thesis, unlike many of the people in this room, but one thing that I'm going to talk a little bit about is my personal experience, because I feel that a lot of the extracurricular work that I've done throughout my time at Brown has been as informative, if not more informative, than my time in the classroom and my time taking history classes or other classes that I feel have welded together as part of my undergraduate curriculum here. So one thing I somehow became very involved with Hillel, the Center for Jewish Life on campus, and also involved with the Jewish community on campus. But that didn't necessarily mean necessary for me to advocate for my identity as much as it meant to learn about other people's identities, to learn about what being a person of faith meant, to how people connected to faith, to how people wanted to express being part of a community of faith, whether that's through social programming, whether that's through religious observance, whether that's through politics, whether that's in the United States or in the Middle East or in another part of the region, and how to make people feel comfortable in different spaces with those identities or with interest in exploring those identities, and how even when different people view issues differently or bring their different worldviews, how to get people to reconcile those and to feel like they're comfortable, and in particular, how to relay different people's perspectives and how what different people want, different people's identities, different people's desires and thoughts to others, whether those are adults, administrators, people making decisions regarding whom to hire to fill certain roles, people deciding what money different events and programs should be geared towards, etc., and how to not just think about yourself, but think about other people and understand where people are coming from and how to help people challenge themselves and challenge their perspectives while also acknowledging the perspectives that they already have.
Great. So you got to experience a few activities, sort of get into the mindsets of sort of what these students were experiencing as they were sort of putting together their projects and sort of building these narratives. And we wanted to open it up to, does anyone in the audience have any questions for the group? If not, I do.
These can be questions about anything, from why we had you do those activities to like questions about our own individual research, to why we had seniors waking up at 7:30 a.m., whatever you are curious about.
Sure, Caleb.
Can I just speak up?
Sure.
How did you guys come to the decision to make this panel this way? What was the conversation that when you three were said to come together? Like, how did this come about?
To repeat for everyone? This is trouble. How did the sort of setup of the presentation come together when they got formed as a panel?
So we mostly had you all in mind and thinking about when do people take the most away from a presentation? And I know for me and for the three of us, it's when are we doing something? When are we engaged in something? When are we learning? So we thought the most effective way to engage you all would be very literally to engage you all and have activities that were interactive as opposed to us just talking about you. Because I think the best way to learn about how we construct narratives is by literally constructing your own narratives instead of just talking about how one might do that. So that was the genesis for all of the activities we had you do.
In addition, also, we are all doing very different things. Narrative studies, Puritan poetry, active working in communities, however you might want to call it. We all came to the conference with different things in mind, but we also had commonalities and similarities. So it was really exciting when we all got formed as a panel and we realized, wow, we don't want to necessarily be giving a thesis style presentation, but we want to synthesize the common themes that we feel that we've had throughout these experiences and use this like a capstone for our time here at Brown, not necessarily just a capstone of academic study.
And lastly, too, in looking at all of our projects, there was something extremely personal about all of them. And in order to more fully share that personal experience that we had and the investment we had in our different projects, we wanted to have a meeting place here. So it's allowing us to not only share our personal stories, but to continue to expand that sharing outside of ourselves. And so we named it Narratives of Identity, first off, because we were constructing narratives, but also because we wanted to make this a personal, I see you as a person in this audience, I see you as whatever your dates were, as whatever your name was, but also recognizing there's so much more and being able to share that in a conversation rather than a presentation, a one-sided presentation.
Any other questions? Well, as a sort of facilitator, one thing I think about when it came to sort of constructing the different activities is that when you're thinking about identity, the location doesn't start or finish here at Brown in the sense that, yes, you were here for 4 years, but a lot of the dates and places happened before Brown or during Brown, and they will definitely continue after Brown. So the sort of, I like this undercurrent of all of you were people before you came to Brown or interacted with Brown or got accepted to Brown or sent someone to Brown. And what does it mean to have been touched by this institution, you know? And I think that's so beautiful to say. Here? Better. Oh, great. And I think it's awesome because sometimes when you come to a place like Brown, all of a sudden you think, wow, I've been made. And it's not that, you know, you've been made necessarily, you've been transformed to a degree, but you were somebody before you got here, and that's what Brown saw. So hopefully we impacted you in a particular way, but you were somebody before you got here, somebody as you're sort of going out into the world and you're returning to a community of others when you return home to your families or communities in various places and spaces. So I thought that the facilitators or panelists did a wonderful job in really putting people at the center of the conversation and not just themselves, and inviting all of you to share your narratives with all of us, because it's not often that we have opportunities to really reflect on the sort of histories of our being and the sort of things that are most important to us as we think about, you know, ourselves as individuals in community with others. And that also lends itself to a question. And as you all were sort of thinking and reflecting and sort of preparing for Theories in Action, and even sort of putting it into the larger preparing to leave Brown, what would you say is the thing that you sort of learned as you were reflecting on your narrative?
Something that's also near and dear to my heart, in addition to Puritan poetry, apparently, is liberal education as an extremely important force in our society, and more specifically, that question that every single English major gets, where it's like, what are you gonna do with that degree? So going through that process and trying to justify, which is not the proper word, but trying to figure out what weight and importance and significance my own degree title holds. And in the process of going through this thesis, and also in trying to expand into these larger questions that we've been thinking about for Theories in Action, it's very much how do we understand ourselves as people, and in the larger sense, how do we understand ourselves in humanity? And more importantly for me, how do we document that progression? So when we go back and look at ourselves 5 years ago, like, oh, I can never believe I did that, or oh, that was so smart, and look at how smart teenager I was in high school, and then also saying like, oh, that was super silly. But having that progression happen and being something that you can go back and reflect upon and then be able to build upon and improve upon as you go through your time, it's definitely something I felt we've been able to do over the past few weeks in the very short amount of time I've known these two together in this panel, but also just in our larger Brown experience. How did we come in as freshmen? How have we documented our experiences, whether it's through Facebook and photos, or how have we had conversations that have marked us? How have we had different events that have stuck with us? And how do we understand that in our larger progression of our story and our narrative?
So first off, I remember meeting Kimberly at the very, very beginning of freshman year. We lived in the same dorm, and at the time, Kimberly was pre-med. I don't know if you remember, I'm sure you remember this, but it's just amazing to think about how much we've both individually changed, or I met Alice way too late in my Brown career, but even just in the short amount of times that we've known all each other, but also just in terms of the time that we've been here, or throughout all 21 or 22 years of existence, think about how we've changed, how we've learned, how we've grown, how our environments have shaped us, and how we've shaped our environments too. Not just in terms of being passive, but also in terms of being active. And one of the things that's gotten me really excited is that I want people to feel like they matter in society. I want people to feel like they're part of something larger than themselves, and I want people to feel affirmed. And thinking about, okay, throughout my experience, how has that happened? How hasn't that happened? And what have I learned through my time at Brown that can lead me into the world to not just theorize, but apply? And there was a title of a presentation yesterday for the opening keynote for this conference that was, I don't want to hear your theories if you can't grow corn, or something along those lines. And I don't necessarily see myself going out and learning how to farm or growing corn or being a champion farmer, but it's this idea of taking your experience at Brown in the classroom and out of the classroom and not just leaving it on College Hill, but then bringing it into the world and applying it, and hopefully trying to do some good in a lot of different forms.
So this is following a little bit on Melanie's point. As I both wrote my thesis and then much more so the past couple of weeks preparing for this panel, have been thinking about narrative and agency in terms of having the power to write my own narrative. Reflecting on my time at Brown, I think the meaning I will derive from it is going to change as I progress through my life, and I can also decide how I want Brown to have impacted me, how I want Brown to have impacted the way I see the world, and what this time just means in general. So that's a very, very short answer, but I think if I talk more, it would just be talking for talking, so.
Thank you all. Any other questions for the group? From the group, rather? Well, if not, I will highly encourage you to live tweet. It's hashtag BrownTIA14, and, oh, did you have an announcement? And don't forget about the wonderful Synergy Award. Our Synergy keyword narratives. And it's the longest word of all of them. So, so you have a little bit of work to get us to win. But thank you all for your active participation. We really appreciate it. Oh, Peggy, did you? Sure.
So I don't need that mic. I've learned how to project when I need to. So Kimberly and I have something in common. I started out my college career in the sciences, and it took me 20 years to realize that I really needed a degree in humanities, so I actually got a master's in public humanities. Those of us involved in higher education are calling it a crisis that the humanities is facing. Can you speak more about what, if you were talking to freshmen coming in, and the majority of the freshmen that say they're coming to Brown or got into Brown are either going to study engineering, neuroscience, or economics, I think. So what would your advice be to encouraging students to take a class about Tolstoy or the Puritan poetry or ancient Jewish texts?
So I'm a tour. I can never.
Oh, that's fine.
Is it on?
I would recommend keeping the mic in the stand. I think that's part of the problem.
Can everyone hear me? Oh, excellent. Okay, so I'm a tour guide, as many of y'all know, and this semester in particular, I count on every tour the number of times when I get asked, oh, you're a history concentrator. What are you going to do with that? What are you going to do with that history degree? You're a history concentrator. What does that mean? It's usually around 6 times a tour, and tours are 50 minutes long. It's a little ridiculous. But I really think that my history degree is the most relevant thing I could have done through my time at Brown. I've learned how to take lots of different perspectives, form a concrete argument, come up with a narrative, and then learn how to argue that persuasively. That's my own personal experience, and I can argue the same thing. I have a friend who's a comparative literature concentrator, and he always complains, very meta, oh, this is the stupidest thing I could have done, this is selfish, blah, blah, and I'm like, no, actually comparative literature is the most relevant thing you could do, and then I come up with reasons why I genuinely think it is. You learn about different perspectives, you learn how to take different, use different cultural works to take them into account, etc. What you learn at Brown is so much more than what your concentration can define, and also what classes that you take may be, or what honestly comes on your diploma. Some people on their diplomas don't even mention their concentration, and that's something that I think is very important. And another thing, I'm a history concentrator, and I took 1 history class my freshman year, and then just took a lot my sophomore year and really discovered that I liked it a lot. What you do your freshman year doesn't, unless you want to be an engineer, it doesn't necessarily need to define your time here at Brown. And I live with people in the sciences, and they love the sciences, and for them it's something that's really, really important to them. It's a way of thinking they enjoy, and for them those classes in that discipline and their experience in the discipline makes a lot of sense. But it doesn't make sense for everyone. Sciences at Brown, or actually the humanities at Brown, or the social sciences, anything at Brown is really, really hard. And one of the great things about being at Brown and being part of the open, and being able to engage with the open curriculum is that you're taking classes that you want to take, and you're in a room full of people who are also taking the classes that they want to take. And to be able to capitalize on that. And if something looks interesting to you, especially as a first year, to go for it and to get out of your comfort zone and take it pass fail if that's something that seems a little bit scary, but just to be able to get out there and have that luxury of time here. Sorry if that was a little ranty. I just feel very strongly about all those things.
Melanie took my tour guide shtick. So I think to more directly answer your crisis in the humanities, I think first off, it's an economic thing. We've had, after 9/11, we had an increase in the number of international relations students and the number of ethnic studies students, and then after the crash, we had a large number of students who were going into STEM, into economics, and then the humanities seemed to be the ones that were on the wayside, which makes me very sad because my experience here has been an absolutely amazing one, especially within the English department. And I think what it comes down to, I think Melanie hit it best on the head, is that you need to do what you want to do. And you can't do it best unless you're sitting in the library reading Puritan poetry and you're writing about it because this makes you happy. And you can't be doing activism work in a Jewish community, and you can't be talking about Tolstoy in films unless that makes you happy. And I stopped being in the lab and stopped doing physiology courses because it didn't make me happy. And I think for students to come in and have, as Shane was saying earlier, a narrative, as we all do, that's only half constructed, is something that they need to figure out. And it's something that as they go through their time at Brown, that hopefully they will. And I think that we have a place that is very special in that regard. But yes, I am worried. I am worried about the crisis in humanities. I do think humanities are so important. Obviously, I'm extremely biased, and I understand that I can't convince everyone because goodness knows my passions are not the same as theirs. But I think the recognition and the understanding and significance of those various passions are what we need to continue to emphasize.
I am not a tour guide, so I cannot speak to being asked, what are you going to do with your degree during a tour? However, anytime I tell anyone the name of my concentration, they love asking me what I'm going to do with it. In terms of what would I tell someone who is focusing on a STEM concentration, I have an incredible amount of respect for people who are concentrating in sciences, in like CS, math. But I would say the humanities is a discipline, and it's a way of looking at the world. And if nothing else, taking a course on Tolstoy, in creative writing, in history, just gives a different perspective about how to look at the world and how to critically think about the world that I think can only supplement the lens you use when engaging in a scientific discipline. So just from a very pragmatic standpoint. Additionally, you have an incredible luxury at Brown that you can take whatever classes you want. And I think engineering has a 28 course curriculum. That still leaves 4 courses open to whatever you want. If you want to take a creative writing course just because it's fun, take it just because it's fun. I think Melanie and Kimberly more or less said everything else I would say, so I will turn it back over to Shing.
Well, I'll leave with you all one last comment. And I think that sort of speaking to Becky's question and what's sort of been illustrated here on this panel is that just as important as sort of production, whether you're producing in engineering or the sciences, is also the production of sort of knowledge, experience, and meaning making. And what is so incredibly enticing to me about sort of narratives of identity is the fact that the life of the mind is just as important as any other life of production and you could sort of engage with, because at the end of the day, if we're not having opportunities to reflect on our identities as individuals and our identities as situated within particular histories, whether those histories be right here in the United States or from particular faith traditions, we're only doing half of our work as human beings. And the life of the mind is so important. It shouldn't be shortchanged just because of economics or sort of the pattern of the global economy or something of the sort. And I'd like to commend the panelists for really inviting us to think and reflect about sort of our identities and how we come to make meaning of them and craft our narratives together. So a round of applause for the panelists. And a round of applause for the participants for engaging in this process and having a little opportunity.
Also, Kimberly found a really wonderful poem when we first started coming up with this panel. We ran out of time to go over it because we had such a great time talking about and learning from each other. But if anyone wants, there's this really great poem, it's really short, and it just at least got us all thinking about identities, communication, faith, all those things, and through the realm of English. So again, seeing how English is relevant and also just fun to read. So if anyone wants it.
Thanks, everyone.